AITA for blocking my ex after he cheated with his coworker? My name is Ainsley. I'm 24, and until recently, I was in a relationship with someone named Zion. We'd been together for just under a year. Things started out strong. He was thoughtful, curious, and always seemed to understand what I needed without me having to explain. He'd notice when I was overwhelmed before I even said a word. He'd make tea for me while I worked late, leave sticky notes on my mirror with little affirmations. I remember thinking once, this is what safety feels like. But lately, something had changed, subtly at first, like a draft sneaking through a closed window. It started when he became close friends with a woman named Penelope. She worked with him at the design studio, smart, confident, the kind of person who commands a room without even trying. At first, I didn't think much of it. He'd talk about her projects, her humor, how well they collaborated. I was glad he had friends at work. But after a while, it started to feel different. Every story he told somehow included her, what she said, what she thought, what she did to make him laugh. I was starting to feel like an uninvited guest in my own relationship. One night, while we were watching a movie, he got a text. He smiled down at his phone, typed something quickly, and locked it. I tried not to ask, but curiosity and dread tangled together in my chest. Who's that? I asked, trying to sound casual. He hesitated for a split second too long. Penelope, he said finally. She just sent me a meme about the project deadline. I nodded, but something inside me twisted. It wasn't about the text. It was about the way he said her name, like he was trying to sound nonchalant, but couldn't quite pull it off. After that, I noticed more. Late replies when I messaged him. Sudden extra hours at work. The way he'd check his phone in the middle of dinner, glance down, and smile without saying why. One night, I asked gently, do you like her? Really like her? He blinked, surprised, maybe even offended. Of course not, Ainsley. She's practically married. Don't be ridiculous. I wanted to believe him, but something in his tone didn't feel right. It wasn't defensive, it was distant, like he'd already moved the topic somewhere else in his head. We sat there in silence after that, the movie still playing, but the air between us had shifted. I felt like a guest in my own living room. A week later, we had a couples counseling session. We'd started therapy months ago to work through communication issues, and for a while, it really helped. But that day, Zion came in with a notebook. He placed it on the table like a weapon, neat and deliberate. When the therapist asked what he wanted to talk about, he said quietly, I think we need to take a break. I remember my heart dropping into my stomach. A break? I asked. From what? He looked down at his notes. From us. He flipped open the notebook. It was full of bullet points, page after page of what he called things we need to work on. Most of it was about me, how I overthink, how I interrupt, how I hold on to little things too long. He said I didn't trust his intentions, that I make small issues into big ones. None of it was cruel, but the way he read it out loud felt clinical, detached, like he was reporting on someone else's flaws, not the woman sitting right across from him. When I tried to speak, he interrupted. Ainsley, please, let me finish. By the time he stopped, I wasn't angry. I was hollow. He said he still loved me, but he needed space to find clarity. I nodded, even though my throat was tight. I didn't cry until I got home. That night, I walked around the apartment for hours, touching everything we'd built together. The framed photo from our first trip, the plants we'd bought at the flea market, the coffee mug he'd given me that said stay soft. Everything felt like it had been borrowed, not shared. A few days later, I saw that Zion had been posting cryptic things on his Instagram stories. Quotes about being misunderstood and taking time to grow alone. I didn't respond. I told myself I'd give him the space he wanted, but it stung that he could announce his need for solitude to the world while leaving me in silence. Then, a mutual friend named Cannon messaged me. He said Zion had been out at a small gathering the night before with Penelope. Someone apparently joked about them looking like a couple, and Zion didn't correct it. He laughed and said, we just get each other. That sentence hit me like a punch. We just get each other. I'd heard him say those exact words about me once, early in our relationship. I felt my chest tighten, my hands shake, but still I stayed quiet. I didn't want to be the jealous ex. I didn't want to be that girl. Until one night, scrolling through social media, I saw a photo of them together, smiling, sitting a little too close at a restaurant I recognized. Her hand was near his arm, not touching but close enough to say something without words. I texted him immediately. Are you seeing Penelope? He replied a minute later. No, of course not. Don't start this again. I told him what I'd heard from Cannon. There was a long pause. Then he wrote, we're just spending time together. We both need support right now. Support. That word rang in my head for hours. Support was what I had offered him every single time he fell apart, every time he doubted himself. And now he was finding it in someone else. A few days later, I found out through another friend that he and Penelope had gone to the lake over the weekend. Just the two of them. He hadn't mentioned it, even though we were still technically on a break, not broken up. When I called him, he answered on the third ring, his voice casual, too casual. Zion, I said, trying to stay calm. Why didn't you tell me you went to the lake with Penelope? He sighed like I was exhausting him. Ainsley, I told you I need space. Space isn't secrecy, Zion, I said quietly. He exhaled sharply. You're twisting things again. That was the moment something inside me snapped. All the restraint I'd been holding on to gone. No, I'm not twisting anything. You're just rewriting it to make yourself feel better. Okay, you know what? He said coldly. This is exactly why I needed a break. You can't let anything go. And you can't tell the truth. I shot back. There was silence. Then a click. He hung up. I stared at my phone, my pulse hammering. Then I sent one last message. You can have all the space you want. You just won't find me in it anymore. I blocked him after that. The next morning, I woke up expecting panic, regret, but instead, I felt weightless. For the first time in months, I slept through the night without waking up to check my phone. A week later, he emailed me. The subject line was "I'm sorry." He said he hadn't cheated, but admitted that emotional lines got blurred. He said he never meant to hurt me, but he felt something missing between us, and Penelope helped him see that. He wrote, "You'll always mean something to me," as if that was supposed to soften the blow. I didn't reply because I knew what that line really meant. I want to ease my guilt without facing it. It's been 3 months since Zion and I last spoke. Long enough for the air around his name to stop feeling heavy, or at least that's what I told myself. I'd build a kind of rhythm. Work, walks, painting, quiet dinners with friends who didn't ask too many questions. I'd learned how to breathe again without waiting for a message that would never come. Then, one Tuesday night, my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but some small ache of curiosity made me check. The message was short. "Hey, I hope you're doing okay. I just wanted to say I didn't mean for things to happen the way they did. Penelope." I froze. For a moment, I couldn't even process it. I didn't know how she'd gotten my number. My hands hovered over the screen for a full minute before I typed one word. "What things?" She replied quickly, almost like she'd been waiting for me to answer. "I just wanted to be honest. Zion and I started seeing each other not long after you two took that break. I thought you knew. He told me you were already done." I felt my stomach drop. I stared at the screen until her words blurred. She sent another message, a longer one this time. She said she felt guilty, that she didn't mean to hurt me, that she thought I seemed like a good person. I didn't respond, not for hours. I just sat there, reading her messages again and again, my pulse loud in my ears. My first instinct was anger, but it never came. Instead, there was this strange calm, because finally, the truth was plain. I hadn't imagined the distance. I hadn't been paranoid. I'd just been right too soon. Later that night, I got a call from Zion. I stared at his name glowing on my screen, the one I hadn't seen in months. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail, his voice quiet, uncertain. "Ainsley, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I think we should talk things through. I miss what we had. I messed up. I listened once, then I deleted it." The next morning, I sent one text. "I hope you're happy, Zion. Please don't contact me again." He replied with one word. "Okay," and that was it. But of course, it wasn't. 2 days later, Cannon messaged me. He said he'd seen Zion and Penelope at a cafe downtown. Apparently, they looked tense, like they'd been arguing. He said he didn't want to stir things up, but thought I should know. I told him I didn't care anymore, but part of me still did. The kind of part you can't reason with. The one that still remembers someone's laugh even after they've lied to you. Later that week, I got another message, this time from Zion. It came through his work email, since I'd blocked him everywhere else. He wrote, "I know you asked me not to contact you, but I need to say this. Things with Penelope ended. She told you because she wanted to clear her conscience, but she left out what really happened. She was the one who pushed for it when I wasn't ready. I made mistakes, but I never meant to hurt you. Can we please just talk once?" I didn't reply, but that night, lying in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not because I wanted him back, but because I realized how desperately he still needed to control the story. He wasn't apologizing to heal anything. He was apologizing to rewrite it. A few days passed before Penelope texted me again. "He's been calling me nonstop," she said, "saying you won't answer him, that I ruined everything. I just want to move on, but he won't let go." For the first time, I felt sorry for her. Maybe not for what she'd done, but for the fact that she was now seeing the side of him I'd spent a year trying to fix. The side that always needed to be right. That night, my phone rang again, Zion. I didn't answer at first, but then he called a second time, and something in me snapped. I picked up. "Why can't you just let this go?" I said before he could speak. "Ainsley, please," he said quickly. "You don't understand. I didn't cheat. She came on to me. I was confused. I thought you didn't want me anymore. You thought I didn't want you because you decided I didn't." My voice cracked despite myself. "You don't get to rewrite this, Zion. You don't get to make me the reason you lost your own integrity." There was silence. Silence. Then he said quietly, I just want you to see I'm trying. Trying now doesn't fix the choices you already made, I said. And you're not calling to make peace. You're calling because you can't stand not being the hero in your own story. He didn't reply. The line stayed quiet for a long moment, then clicked off. After that, I blocked his work email too. For a while, everything went still again. My days found a steady rhythm. I started teaching art classes on weekends, something I'd always wanted to do. People who didn't know my story told me I seemed lighter. Maybe I was. But one evening, as I was packing up after class, I saw a familiar figure standing by the studio door. Zion. He looked thinner, tired. He gave me a small, almost desperate smile. Ainsley, he said softly, I didn't mean to corner you. I just wanted to see you once more, to say I'm sorry in person. My pulse quickened, but I kept my voice steady. You shouldn't be here. I know, he said, but I can't stop thinking about how I ruined everything. You were right about everything, and I hate that it took losing you to realize it. I wanted to yell, to cry, but instead, I just said, Zion, you didn't lose me. You pushed me away. And now you're standing here trying to fix the memory of me, not the person I actually was. He looked down, eyes glassy. I just miss who I was when I was with you. That sentence hit me harder than I expected, because that was the truth. He didn't love me anymore. He loved the version of himself I had believed in. I hope you find that person again, I said quietly, but you won't find them here. I walked past him without looking back. That was the last time I saw him. The end. You're not the Aita. You didn't do anything wrong. You just stopped accepting half-truths and emotional games. You were honest, loyal, and tried to fix things when they still could have been fixed. Zion, on the other hand, acted like he wanted clarity when really he just wanted freedom without guilt. That break was never about space. It was his way of keeping a door open while he looked for something new. You weren't crazy for noticing the shift. Anyone would have felled off after the late replies, the extra hours, and the mysterious smiles at his phone. You gave him chances to be real with you, but he kept hiding behind calm words and weak excuses. Then when he got caught, he tried to make it sound like you were the one twisting things. That's not love, that's emotional gymnastics. And the part with Penelope? Honestly, that just confirmed what your gut already knew. You didn't lose him. He replaced commitment with curiosity and called it growth. The messages, the support talk, the lake trip, all of it showed that he wasn't confused. He just didn't want to admit what he was doing. What I really like about how you handled it is that you didn't sink to his level. You didn't blow up. You didn't start a drama storm. You just said your piece and walked away. That takes a different kind of strength. You didn't need revenge. You needed peace, and you found it. The part that stuck with me is when he said he missed who he was when he was with you. That line says everything. He doesn't miss you. He misses the version of himself that felt good under your care. That's not love. That's dependency dressed up as regret. So yeah, you're not the Aita. You were steady, clear, and respectful, even when he wasn't. You didn't ruin anything. You just stopped pretending broken pieces were fine. Keep your calm, keep your boundaries, and don't look back. You already won the moment you chose peace over explanation. Before we jump into the next story, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let us know your favorite part in the comments. AITA for moving out on the woman who raised me after an argument and ignoring her calls. My name is Valentina. I'm 20 years old, and lately, I've been torn over something that shouldn't be this complicated. It's about Anna, the woman who raised me for most of my childhood, though she isn't my biological mother. Anna came into my life when I was 5. My dad, Elias, had just remarried after years of being on his own, and she immediately tried her best to make me feel at home. I used to call her Annie at first, but over time, she became Mom without anyone asking me to change it. She taught me how to tie my shoes, took me to piano lessons, and always packed an extra snack for school because I was growing too fast. She had a way of making the world seem safe. When I scraped my knees, she'd patch me up with a gentle smile. When my dad worked late, she'd let me stay up and bake cookies with her while we watched the same corny shows on TV. She wasn't perfect. No one is. But in my memories, she felt like the person who kept everything from falling apart. Then, when I was 13, my dad and Anna separated. It wasn't messy or dramatic, at least not in front of me, but I remember the quiet tension that filled the house for months before it happened. The way dinners got shorter, the way doors started closing a little harder, the way laughter stopped echoing through the halls. One night, I overheard them arguing in the kitchen. My dad's voice was sharp, Anna's was shaking. I couldn't make out every word, but I remember hearing her say, "I can't keep being the only one trying." I didn't understand it then, but that sentence has followed me my entire life. When the divorce happened, I ended up living with my dad. Anna moved to a small apartment across town. We promised to stay close. For a while, we did. Phone calls every weekend, friend, small visits every few weeks. But slowly, those calls became shorter, the visits less frequent. I told myself it was just life happening, but deep down, I think I was scared of the emptiness I felt when I was with her. By the time I finished high school, my dad was struggling financially. His health wasn't great either, and things were tight. Anna offered to let me stay with her for a while until I could save up enough to get my own place. It sounded like the right thing to do. I missed her, or at least the version of her that used to be home. So I moved in. Her apartment was small but neat. Everything had its place. The walls were pale, the curtains were always open, and there was a calm quietness that almost felt sacred. The first week, she cooked my favorite meals: pasta with cream sauce, lemon cake, roasted potatoes. She asked me about my new job at the bookstore, about my friends, about my dad. I told her everything was fine, even though it wasn't. At first, I thought it would be easy, like slipping back into an old rhythm. But it wasn't. Her world moved at a slower pace. She liked mornings, reading the paper, watering her plants, listening to classical music. I liked nights, music in my headphones, scrolling through my phone, drawing until 2 a.m. She noticed every time I came home late. "You're always so tired lately," she'd say gently. "Maybe you should slow down." I'd nod, pretending to agree. But inside, it irritated me. The first real argument came after she asked me to have dinner with her instead of going out with friends. I said no, I already had plans. She looked disappointed and said, "We never eat together anymore." "It's just dinner, Anna," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. "It's not just dinner, Valentina," she replied. "It's about effort. You're living here, but you barely speak to me." That hit me harder than I expected, maybe because she was right. But instead of admitting that, I rolled my eyes and said, "You don't need to make everything a big deal." She went quiet after that, the kind of quiet that feels heavier than words. From then on, things only got more tense. She'd leave little notes on the kitchen counter like, "Don't forget to take your laundry out of the washer," or "Please rinse your dishes next time." I'd see them and feel my stomach twist with irritation. It wasn't about the chores. It was about feeling like a guest in a place that used to feel like home. One night, after I'd come home late from work, she was sitting in the living room waiting. The lights were dim, and she had her glasses perched on her head. "We need to talk," she said. I groaned, dropped my bag, and sat down. She took a deep breath. "I don't know how to reach you anymore. You're here, but you're not here. I feel like I'm living with a stranger." I stared at the floor. "I didn't ask to stay here forever. I told you this was temporary." She nodded slowly. "I know, but temporary doesn't mean distant, Valentina. I just wanted us to find some kind of middle ground." Something about her tone, calm, almost pleading, made me angry. "You're acting like I'm the problem," I said. She looked surprised. "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to," I snapped. "I can feel it every time you look at me." The silence that followed felt like a wall slamming shut between us. She got up quietly and went to her room. I remember sitting there, angry at her, angry at myself, and not even sure why. The next morning, she left for work without saying goodbye. I spent the whole day feeling heavy with guilt, but instead of apologizing, I avoided her. For the next week, we barely spoke. When we did, it was short and stiff. "Good morning. Dinner's on the stove. I'll be home late." Then the landlord notice came. She told me one morning at breakfast, trying to sound calm, but I could see the worry in her eyes. Apparently, I wasn't supposed to have another adult living here without being listed on the lease. "I'll fix it, but it might take some time." I panicked. My paycheck had been cut that week, and I couldn't afford to move anywhere. My mind spiraled, and before I knew it, I was saying things I didn't mean. "Why didn't you check this before I moved in?" I asked. "I didn't think it would be a problem," she said softly. "It's not your fault." But I wasn't listening. "Of course it's a problem. Now what am I supposed to do?" Her face fell. "Valentina," I said, "I'll take care of it." I stood up, pacing. "No, I'll just go back to Dad's." This was a mistake anyway. That hurt her. I saw it in her eyes before she turned away. "If that's what you want," she said, her voice shaking just enough for me to hear it. I left that day, packed my things quickly, stuffed them into bags, and texted my dad to pick me up. I didn't even wait for Anna to come home. I just wanted to disappear before she could say anything that would make me stay. She called that evening. I saw her name light up my phone. I let it ring. Then again. Then once more. I turned the phone face down and cried silently, feeling like I'd betrayed someone who didn't deserve it. That was 8 months ago. Last month, I got an email from a local art gallery. It said I'd been selected for a youth showcase. I almost didn't open it at first. It had landed in my spam folder. But when I scrolled down and saw another name in the CC field, Anna, my stomach dropped. I'd forgotten I'd ever listed her as an emergency contact back in high school. That night, I kept thinking about it. I knew she must have seen the message. Part of me hoped she wouldn't say anything, that she'd just let it pass quietly like we'd both been doing for the past months. But another part of me, some stubborn, hidden part, wanted her to respond. And she did. Around 11 p.m., my phone buzzed. Her name glowed on the screen for the first time in nearly a year. I froze before opening it. Her message was short, simple, but so her. Valentina, I'm so proud of you. I'd love to come see your work if that's okay. No pressure. Love, Anna. I must have read that email 20 times. No pressure. That phrase sat in my chest like a weight. She knew me well enough to choose those words, to make sure I didn't feel cornered. I almost deleted it. My thumb hovered over the trash icon, but I didn't. Instead, I typed, thank you. You can come if you want. It's next Saturday. Then I hit send before I could change my mind. When Saturday came, I was a mess. I'd been rehearsing the moment in my head all week. What I'd say, how I'd act, what expression she'd have when she saw me. I told myself it wouldn't matter if she didn't show up, but the truth was, I'd been checking the door every few minutes. And then she walked in. She looked almost exactly the same. Soft brown curls falling around her shoulders, a simple beige sweater, and that same calm, kind smile that used to greet me when I came home from school. She was holding a small paper bag, probably a gift, though she didn't hand it to me right away. When our eyes met, something inside me twisted. I didn't know if I wanted to cry or run. Hi, sweetheart, she said quietly, like she wasn't sure she had the right to use that word anymore. Hi, I managed to reply. My voice didn't sound like mine. For a moment, we just stood there. Then she stepped closer, looking at the paintings on the wall. These are yours. I nodded. Yeah, most of them. They're beautiful, she said softly. You always had such an eye for detail. I remember the first one you drew, our backyard tree. That memory hit me like a wave. I remembered sitting on the porch with her when I was 7, sketching that tree while she read a book beside me. I wanted to tell her I still had that drawing, folded and worn, in a box under my bed, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I said, thanks. It wasn't emotional or dramatic, just quiet, gentle, fragile. We walked through the gallery together. She asked questions about the pieces, about my job, about whether I still talked to my dad. I answered politely, carefully. It felt like walking across a frozen lake, every step deliberate, afraid of breaking the ice. Then she asked, do you still paint at night like you used to? I smiled faintly. Yeah, I guess I never stopped. That makes me happy, she said. It should have been simple, but hearing that made my throat tighten. After the event ended, she walked me outside. The night was cold, the streetlights dim. She handed me the paper bag she'd been holding. Inside was a sketchbook, thick, leather-bound, like the one she used to buy me every year for my birthday. There was a small note tucked inside the front cover. You don't have to figure everything out right now. I'm just glad you let me be there. That line has stayed with me ever since. We started texting after that, just small things. She sent me pictures of her garden, her cat curled up in the sunlight, a new book she was reading. I sent her photos of new paintings, random sunsets, a coffee mug I thought she'd like. Nothing deep, nothing about what happened. But even those small exchanges felt heavy with meaning. Then, 2 weeks ago, she asked if I wanted to come over for dinner. At first, I said I'd think about it. But later that night, something inside me, maybe guilt, maybe longing, made me type, sure, Friday works. When I showed up, the apartment looked exactly the same. The smell of rosemary and garlic filled the air. My old room was still there, too, though cleaner, emptier. My old stuffed bear sat on the bed, repaired at the seams. Dinner was awkward at first. We talked about work, the weather, movies. Then she mentioned Dad. He told me you've been working long hours, she said. You should take care of yourself, Valentina. I shrugged. I'm fine. I know that tone, she said with a faint smile. You sound just like him when you say that. Something in me snapped. Don't compare me to him. Her smile faded. I didn't mean it like that. Yeah, but you always do that, I said, my voice sharper than I wanted. You act like everything's fine, like we can just pretend the past didn't happen. Her eyes softened. I'm not pretending, Valentina. I'm trying. Tried before, I muttered. Didn't work then either. She looked down at her plate. For a moment, all I could hear was the sound of the clock ticking in the kitchen. Then she said quietly, you're angry at me. I know that, but you have to tell me why. And I did. Everything spilled out. The frustration, the confusion, the guilt I'd been dragging for years. I told her how I felt suffocated living there, how I thought she was disappointed in me, how I hated the silence between us because it reminded me of when she and Dad were falling apart. She listened. She didn't interrupt. But when I finally stopped talking, I saw tears in her eyes. I never wanted you to feel that way, she said, her voice breaking. I thought giving you space was what you needed. I thought if I stayed quiet, you'd come to me when you were ready. I guess I was wrong. I wanted to say something, but the words didn't come. She reached across the table and touched my hand lightly. You're not a burden, Valentina. You never were. I stared at our hands for a long time before pulling mine back. I don't know how to fix this, I whispered. Maybe we don't fix it, she said. Maybe we just start again. That night, I left her apartment feeling both lighter and heavier at the same time. Since then, we've kept talking. Slowly, carefully. Some days are easy. Some are awkward. There are still moments when I feel that same resistance, the urge to pull away before I get too close again. But she never pushes, she just stays. Last week, she came to another art show of mine. She stood quietly in the back, smiling when our eyes met. Afterward, she said, you're finding your own way. I'm proud of you for that. For the first time in years, I believed her. The end. Nah, Valentina, you're not the Aita. You're just someone who hit that wall where love and exhaustion start looking the same. You didn't storm out to hurt Anna. You left because staying felt too heavy. Sometimes when people hold space for us, it starts to feel like pressure, even if they mean well. You were just trying to find your balance, and that's not something you need to feel guilty for. Anna loved you in that quiet, steady way that's easy to take for granted until it's gone. She wasn't trying to control you. She just didn't know how to reach the version of you that grew up while she wasn't looking. And honestly, that's tough for both sides. You were living in her house, but also trying to live your own life. That kind of in-between always cracks somewhere. The good part? You didn't close the door completely. You let her come see your art, and that was your way of saying, I'm not done with you. I just need to start from a different place. That's huge. Most people never even get that far. So no, you're not the Aita. You just needed space to figure yourself out, and you did. Anna gets that now too. You both broke a little, then decided not to stay broken. That's not being wrong. That's being human. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Got a story to share? Drop it in the comments, and let us know which one was your favorite. If you enjoyed this video, you'll definitely want to check out AITA for refusing to lie for my ex after he ruined my life. Click here to watch it now.